In this episode of the Comic Book Collector's Guide, we go over the process of creating a podcast and also creating videos for YouTube. Be back after this brief introduction. Welcome back to the Comic Book Savant YouTube channel. I'm your host, James Harris. This is the series Comic Book Collector's Guide. This is episode 10. We've gone through the different journey in different parts of being a fan or a hobbyist or picking up the hobby of collecting comics. We're kind of extending a little bit beyond that because I've gotten so many questions over the years. And if I'm relatively new to YouTube, I've only been doing YouTube for about a year and a half, give or take, but I've behind the scenes been doing the Comic Book Savant podcast for this is my 13th year of producing the podcast. I just had my 400th episode of that podcast. So I've been doing podcasts for a long time, and over the years I've gotten tons of questions on how do you get started, what do you do, what is the process. Many years ago when I first started, I got a lot of questions because podcasting was still relatively a new thing. Over the years, it's evolved. It's become a lot easier, and the barrier to entry is so much easier. The same thing can be said about YouTube, but it's a different skill set, but your workflows are going to be relatively the same. So that's what we're going to focus on this episode, because after, you get into collecting comics and you're already a huge fan, you watch the movies, you watch the television shows, you want to share your enthusiasm and your fandom with other people. And I found for me, doing a podcast was the best way to find like-minded people to discuss the topic with and to learn from and share experience with. And I've actually met a ton of good friends through podcasting, and I'm meeting even more cool people through the experience of being a YouTuber now. I'm extending the podcast into a YouTube channel, and I'm being exposed to a whole new audience of people. And like I said, meeting great people as well, and people that I can co-collaborate with and everything else. So this is what we're going to talk about in this episode. So just to get started, the barrier of entry is minimal. We spend hundreds, almost at this point now, thousands of dollars on our smartphones, which are basically, a mobile computer in your hand. A lot of things, be it a podcast and or a YouTube channel, you can just start with something as simple as the phone that you carry around in your day-to-day activities. If you have an Android or iPhone, it doesn't matter. It's a ton of programs, free, some paid with, minimum pay. For me, I have an iPhone. It's been periods over the years where I've actually recorded, edited, and put out podcasts straight from my phone. It's is some cost, extended to it with any hobby that you're going to pick up or expanding beyond that. And like I said, to do something like a podcast is going to be some startup cost affiliated, or associated with that. When I first started podcasting 13 years ago, I literally only had a little $10 to $15 microphone on a stand. It was like a stick microphone about yay long that just had you would just sit it up on your desk. It was a USB microphone that I used, and I used a program, a free open source software called Audacity. You can download it. You can pretty much get it on every format because it's open source. You can get it on Windows. You can get it on Mac if you have an Apple or a Mac, and I think it's even on Linux if you use Linux. That gets super nerdy. I'm an IT dude by profession, so, I know all that stuff, but not a lot of people use Linux. But if you happen to, I think Audacity, you can even get on Linux as well. So you can get it on any platform you're really on. They don't have any, you can't download Audacity to your phone. This is a desktop computer software. You can have that. I used that for years. The first, I've been on Macs for the past 8-9 years. So the first 4 years or so, I just used Audacity. In the first couple of years, I just used, like I said, a $15 stick microphone to record a podcast. It was horrible. Don't get me wrong. It was definitely horrible sounding. when I go back and listen to those very first episodes of the podcast, the quality wasn't the best. But again, it was it was something that helped get me started in the hobby, and that's all you need to get started. So many times we get in our own heads before we even start a journey that we'll psych ourselves out to never start. The best thing to do, if you have a thought or idea that you want to explore, push yourself, push through the fear, the apprehension of it. It took me the longest time. It took me years. I talked about doing a YouTube channel for at least like 5 years, but I got so comfortable in being behind a microphone. You don't have a real audience. Most of the time, when I recorded my podcast, or still now when I record my podcast, I don't have an audience around me. I'm in my little office that I showed you guys in the last video by myself, and I'm just talking about comics. It got real comfortable, and because I've done it for so long, it's second nature to me. The funniest thing about it is I had apprehension for the longest time before I started podcasting. I never personally liked the sound of my own voice. So to do something like a podcast and have to edit a podcast and listen to myself. And the funniest thing is, to this day, of doing 400 plus episodes of the Comic Book Savant podcast, I've probably listened back to my own episodes maybe 5 times out of 400 plus episodes. I still hate the sound of my own voice. I edit as I record, so I don't have to listen to it in playback. I make sure everything's in place and set up, and I release it. I record it, let it go. I never go back over what I did previously, because again, I still have apprehension about it. But I just try to be as passionate, because I love comics, and talk about it as knowledgeable as possible. And then I put it out to the world and to get whatever response, and I don't think about it. But that's a personal thing. We're always going to have fears and apprehensions, but I still do it because, again, I love comics. I feel like I have a unique voice and something to say. So I feel like that's more important over my own personal fears. So I got over it. The same thing with video. I didn't know how I was going to be, talking to a camera and talking to all of you guys on the other side of it. But the greatest thing is, and the most rewarding thing that motivates me, is when you guys respond down below in the comment section, or you email me. I get feedback, and I know, from that I can gauge, and I get encouragement to push forward through any of my fears. You're always going to have those, but don't let fear stifle you from doing the thing that you're passionate about. Life is too short. We see crazy things happen all over the world all the time, and people losing their lives. And I'd rather try and fail at something to let fear stifle me and never try it at all. And I'm always left wondering what could have been or what would have been. So don't let that. If I can't do anything more in this video, is just to encourage you to go forward. You can always self-correct and check after you do, but you have to get started first. So again, I started with Audacity, which is a free program, a stick microphone, and to do something like when you start podcasting, you have podcast services. It's so many. The one that I've used for the majority of my time podcasting is Lipson. I'll have links. Everything that I'm talking about in this episode, I'm going to have linked down below. So you'll have links to get to everything that I'm talking about. So if you're ready to start that journey of podcasting or YouTubing, I'll make sure all the resources that you need, or just to at least get started, will be available down below. So check out the links down in the description, video description, and get started today. So Lipson is a podcast hosting service. It basically stores your files. After you record your files from your computer, you upload them to the service, and they help you distribute it out for people to get. One thing that you have to do after you record your first episode and you get signed up with a podcast service is you want to get your podcast listed on iTunes. iTunes is like the biggest directory of podcasts that are out there. So you want to get listed on iTunes. Now, the great thing about Lipson, they've been doing it since the very beginning. I've used them from the very beginning when I started. They've been around forever. They have all the tools built in their user interface to help you get your podcast listed on iTunes. There's other different directories out there after you get accepted to iTunes. And normally what you do, you record your first episode, you upload it, You in Lipson, they have very specific tutorials on their website after you sign up, so don't worry about that. But after you submit your feed, your URL to your unique podcast to iTunes, it takes a little while. It could take up to a week, maybe a few days, sometime a couple of hours. It just really depends. Once you submit it, they'll check the feed, make sure it's a live feed, and then you will receive an email from iTunes saying you've been accepted. And then once that's done, you're good to go. They'll send you a URL where you're set up in their directory that you can share out with people and have them subscribe via iTunes for your podcast. And then that is the beginnings of a podcast. How do you get to that point? Again, microphone is essential. You don't have to break the bank with a microphone. Like I said, I started with a $10, $15 stick microphone. I eventually evolved to like a more kind of professional microphone, USB microphone. I don't know if you can see it in this shot or not. No, I can't reach. But I think I showed it in a video last time. I have a Samson USB microphone. I've literally had this microphone for about 10 years now. It's the quality was a ton better than the little stick microphone. And I might post a picture somewhere here in the corner for you to see of what the microphone looks like. I bought a kit at the time. It had the microphone, a suspension thing if you wanted to put it on a suspension arm, which I have it on. I think a pop filter, all that. It was like, at the time, I think it was like $150 for the whole kit. Now that same microphone you can get like separately, and it's like under $100. Again, I'll have links to it all in the description box below. So if you're interested in picking one up, just click on the link. It'll send you through where you can pick that up. And I started with that. Now things evolved over time because traveling and you want to record stuff. It's great resources for your phone. So if you want to use your phone as a primary device, again, I have an iPhone right here. They're literally devices that that you can connect. When I was moving cross country, I wanted to keep recording the podcast, so I purchased. It was a Samson microphone. It was lightning. It was a lightning connection that you can plug into your iPhone. You plug it right into the bottom of your iPhone. It was a little mic device. I'm going to have it pictured here now, so you should see it in the corner of the screen that I could connect right here. And you literally held it to your mouth like this and record it. The quality is the same as my Samson USB that I have, on my suspension stand. Not as much, but it was better than the stick microphone that I started with. It was a little bit more pricier. It was because of the lightning connection and all that. It was about $100. It worked. It worked extremely well for that purpose. I only used it for that short period of time. I recorded maybe 3 or 4 episodes with that particular setup, and it worked for that purpose. Also, it's before I have an iMac set up now. I'm stationary. For many years in the beginning, I had just laptops, and Samson makes a little microphone. It's about $40 that you literally just plug in to your USB port on your computer, and you can use it. It's pictured somewhere here. You'll see it where it's only about so big. You want to make sure you're somewhat close to it so it can pick up the ambient noise. It's not like we're here. I have the suspension. I can put it right to my mouth, and I'm a very relatively good distance from it. Here, depending where your laptop is, like if you have it sitting down right in front of you, that should be good enough distance for it to pick up well. The quality was decent. Again, it's about $40. It was a little, excuse me, a little bit more at the time when I picked it up, but that was a few years ago when it was a very new thing. But it's a lot of different devices like that you can just connect to your phone to record audio. And I mean, now even with the new iPhone, the new version, I think iOS 12.0, they have the Memos app. So you don't even actually need any special software. Or on iPhone, they have free, you have access to GarageBand, which is what I use when I moved to the Mac. That's what I use to record my podcast through now. I still have Audacity as an option, but I wanted to learn the different Mac software. So since I had it free on my Mac when I first bought a Mac, I just used GarageBand and just use that, learn that tool. It's relatively easy to pick up and use. It's other expensive software if you want to pay for it, but again, it's free and free options and inexpensive options that you can go to. Like I said, my go-to is GarageBand. There's tons of other, like I said, like Audacity specifically. Another thing that I use in my workflow in creating a podcast and videos, this is a kind of dual tool that I use. It's a free version of it, and there's a paid version of it as well. I use just the free version, which is a note-taking application called Evernote. I love Evernote because you can have it on your desktop, you can have it on your iPad, and you can have it on your phone. You have it on multiple devices, and it syncs all your notes across the board. So if I'm in the bed and I'm typing some stuff on my iPad that I want to cover in an episode or come up with a show idea, I could type it up in my iPad or on my phone. And then when I sit down in the office to work, every note that I updated or maybe took something out, added something to, I can sync it up across the board. For me, some people write full-on scripts. When I do these episodes, I always, in my podcast as well, I don't script them because when I first started, I thought that would be a smart thing to do. You can tell when someone's reading from a script unless they're very practiced and do that well. I'm not an actor. I'm not a host in that sense of the word. I'm just a natural, passionate fan. So I just talk from my head and my heart. When I'm talking, I do a light outline, just bullet points that I want to touch on. And like when you see me glance down sometime in the video, it's just me. I'm actually have my iPad with Evernote on it, making sure I hit those bullet points and those things that I make sure that are essential that I want to convey in the video or in the podcast while I'm going through it. So I will glance down at that, or if I'm recording a podcast, it's a little different because I have it up and I actually have it up while I'm talking just to make sure I touch on those points. And you can get more advanced with Evernote because you can do a lot of things. You can take clippings of pages. You can, sketch little notes and stuff like that. It's very extensive. But when you get into that part of the program, you have to upgrade to like the premium, and it has cost to it. It's because I just literally do text notes. The free version of Evernote works for me, and I've used it. I started using Evernote maybe like 8-9 years ago. I came across it as a new program at the time, and I've used it. It's been just a lifesaver. And for me, again, being 400 plus episodes into the podcast, I like to have those outlined and I can organize them. And they let you organize things in separate notebooks. So I have everything organized by particular types of episodes I do. And same thing with the videos. When I do Comic Book Collectors Guides episodes, once they're recorded, edited, and put out, I have a notebook that I can go back and review things that I covered before and what points I touched on. So if I want to revisit it, I have a base to go on to see what I talked about before and what things have changed. It leaves it as a great reference point for you as a creator. So you can definitely utilize that as well. I'll have links. You should see the links now on the screen for the particular sites, and it'll be down below in the description box as well. So that's a great tool for podcasting or for video, just with the brainstorming and the outlining process of organizing what your content pre-recording, the shooting of the video. Another program, like if you're going to do, I do podcasts with my friend Heath Holland. I know I've talked about him. Serial at Midnight is a YouTube channel. The website, serialmidnight.com. We collab and do what we're calling now Spinner Rack Bros. We do an episode once a month on my podcast where we collaborate. What we do on that, we use Skype as a tool that we Skype into one another. I have a program. I forgot to write the program name down. I'll have it down in the description box below. It's a program that I bought some years ago, which allows you to record the audio from Skype calls. So I can record our conversation. We will have our conversation Just like it's different because you're doing a Skype call, but you're recording the audio, and then I edit it up and release it as a podcast. So like if you want to do interviews and you don't have people on site, and you're in two different locations, Skype is a free program. Like I said, now the I think it's called Ecamm is actually the name of the software that I use to record the audio from the Skype calls. I think when I bought it, it was about $30. It has a lifetime license. So as they do upgrades, they'll send me an email. I upgrade the program. Different versions of Skype come out. It keeps up with it to allow the program to still work exceptionally well. And I hadn't used it for years, but since me and Heath decided to collaborate and do that podcast together, I pulled out that software, and it's been a godsend with us being in two different locations. We produce a good podcast. The audio recording is really good in it, and it's yielded a good return on investment. So sometimes a little can go a long way. That $30, like I said, I spent it like 7-8 years ago, because I was going to do interviews. I wanted to venture into doing those, and I did some research on the program. I bought it. Didn't use it for years. I saved the email with my licensing code, and when me and Heath decided to collaborate, I just pulled it out, re-downloaded the software, and we were good to go. And it's been working like a champ since then. So those are things more so when it comes to the side of podcasting. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is just when you want to create something like a podcast, you got to do the general things of starting, what do you want to name your podcast? Another thing you want to keep in mind, do you want to do a show by yourself? Do you want to have a host or a group of hosts? For me, that didn't work out because I didn't have people close around me for me to record with. It was mainly going to be me. And it just worked best for me to do a single person show. It's good now because I always wanted to collaborate with more people, but things can be crazy with scheduling and all that, and it can make it hard to produce content. With it just being me, anytime I have free time, and as long as I have ideas, I can sit down whenever I'm free and record an episode or record multiple episodes to release to you guys over time. I tend to plan out podcasts weeks and months in advance. So that's where Evernote comes in. Whenever I get a show idea, just the show idea, base show idea, this is a good topic, I create a note in Evernote and make that title. And over time, if it's a movie, I'll do notes on, the cast and different things like that. I build up a base outline. And over the years, when I do specific types of episodes, I have templates I've created in Evernote. So when I do a movie review or a television review or a comic book collector's guide, I have a format to what that note looks like. So I can just copy that template over, fill in the blanks of what I want, what I need, and just go with it, which is great. So having those tools available, I kind of try to plan ahead. I pretty much have, as we speak, as this recording, as far as the podcast, I pretty much have the next 2 months or so of podcasts roughly mapped out. And with the videos, probably the next month solid of ideas of I just have to read something, I just have to watch something, and then sit down and record the episode and go. And I like the flexibility of, if I have the ideas and say one thing catches my interest more than the other, I can easily slot and swap out what I'm doing at what time. Because I'll even say, on this date, I want to put this video out, or I want to put this podcast out. But hey, I was bored and I picked up this and I read it earlier than what I thought. Okay, it's not a big deal to swap that out. And then I just switch the dates on it and go. So it allows me a lot of flexibility. So you want to, make sure that you don't have one idea. You have multiple ideas to kind of play off of. So you're not pigeonholed or you're forcing yourself to cover a particular topic. If you have multiple to go, it gives you more flexibility. And then you can do something that I like to do is recording in bulk or doing batch recording. Say you have a day off work. Hey, instead of just doing the most recent, if you have multiple ideas locked up and ready to go, you can record your next 3 podcasts, and it gives you some time give you plenty of time to edit. You can schedule them, schedule them in advance so you don't have to worry about it, so you can stay ahead. So you're not always rushing to create content, or you're in a crunch to create content. That is so, so important. I've had different health issues that prevented me to do videos on a regular schedule. So I tried now. I've learned over the years with the audio as well as now doing video that I will bulk record maybe 2 or 3 episodes, and I can take my time in the editing, especially with video, because video editing it's not as easy to do as audio editing. Over the years, I've learned how to edit myself as I record, so I have very little to do when I finish recording a podcast, as far as editing that those tracks that I put together. They're pretty much ready to go once I end recording. It's just a little snip here, a little snip there, move certain things around, close out that file, and they're pretty much ready to put out to the world, or to schedule for them to come out. Video is a little bit different because different effects, like the lower thirds you see down at the bottom, any graphics that I put up, it gets a little bit more complicated and it's a little bit more time consuming. But as you do it, and sometimes people let that intimidate them. Yes, it might take you a longer time to do it in the beginning, but like with anything, as you practice and as you do more, you become more acquainted with the different software you use, and you'll learn tricks and tips, and there's tons of tutorials. All I'm telling you is stuff that I've learned through tutorials. I've pretty much self-taught with all of it. My background, as far as my education is computers and IT, and computer networking and web design. Those are kind of my professional tools. But everything with podcasting, video shooting, were just me learning through YouTube, buying different books here and there, and just reading, studying to want to get better. If I put out something, I want it to be of quality, so I'll put in the extra work behind the scenes to make sure when I get in front of the camera, I can produce the best content for you guys to consume, and that I feel good with. Because if I don't feel good, how are you going to feel good about it? How I'm going to interest you or keep your attention? And also another thing you want to do is, do you want to create, one of the things you want to talk about before you, even if it's a video with YouTube or even with a podcast, do you want something like an overall presence? You do have presence on YouTube. If you create a YouTube channel, you have your page there. Also, when you create a podcast for like Lipson, they'll give you like a free page. Or do you want to have a separate website that people go to? For me, I invest in having my own website. So I have a landing page for you guys to always go to find the YouTube videos, the most latest YouTube videos, or the podcast. You can go there and you can always find what I'm doing at all times. It's an additional associated cost with that. I use a service called Squarespace.com. It's relatively inexpensive. I just have a personal website plan, which, like, if you do it monthly, it's around about I think $10 a month for the basic personal website plan. Then you have business and e-commerce that offer all different kinds of sites. The prices vary accordingly. Now, if you sign up for a yearly plan, which is what I do now, because I know I'm doing the podcast continually, I know, once you realize this, you want to do it more consistently, you want to do it for the long haul, you might want to invest in having a page outside of just a YouTube page or what's provided to you from your service providers, and have your own spot that you can control no matter what that you're doing. Or maybe sometimes you want to do, like Heath is great at this with SerialMidnight.com. Certain times he's a writer, so he likes to write a ton. So he does written articles on Serial at Midnight, and really the YouTube channel is a companion piece, but the real content flows through his website. With me, it's a little different. That's just a landing page where you can gather all my content that I'm doing via podcast or I'm doing via YouTube. And I have other links there, like if you want to support the show, and things like that, merchandise, all those other things. I don't do too many posts outside of that, just because between the podcast and the YouTube channel, I feel like I'm pouring out enough content through those that I really don't have time, and I'm not the best writer. So I can't do that. That's not my thing. But you can use that any way you see fit. That's your space to do with it as you want. So that's something you might want to consider and think of before you launch off, is just go over some of these basic things to consider when you're starting out your plan. And the biggest thing, I cannot stress this enough to you guys, is just start. Grab your phone, grab your computer, and just go. You can record video. You can record up to 4K video, now with an iPhone, 4K video. You can shoot a whole video for, YouTube straight off your phone, edit it, especially if you have an iPhone. You have, GarageBand and you have, iMovie. So you can literally edit and make a YouTube episode right off your phone, something that you already own. Look to use what you own. I'm recording this video off a 8-year-old camcorder, just like I told you guys. I showed you last week. Is it like a 7-8-year-old camcorder that I had? I just used what was around me and just get familiar with it, to use it to the best of my ability to hopefully make a great looking video for you guys. And like I said, the software I use what I have available to me on my Mac. Now, I do invest in Final Cut Pro. Now, Final Cut Pro is an investment. I think Final Cut Pro, when I bought it when I first got my Mac, because I always knew I wanted to eventually do videos. And I think at the time, I think even now, Final Cut Pro is like $200. It's like $199. The great thing about that with Mac is that I've had it for 8 years. They've done multiple updates to Final Cut Pro, and you get those updates for free. They haven't had a paid update, but if they ever did do the next update to it where I had to pay for it, I would gladly do it, just because of the flexibility I have in all the free updates. I haven't had to buy another software program over the past 8 years after paying the initial cost. Now, other people use Adobe's suite, but they're mainly subscription based, and they can get quite pricey because you pay monthly access for it. I think you can, it's a subscription model. You can do it monthly or yearly, but it's considerably more. I think I did the math on it, and it's like almost $600 a year. You might get a slight discount. So say maybe $4 or $5. Again, I paid $200, and I've had the program for 8 years, and I've only been really editing heavily and doing YouTube for the past year and a half, with no extra expense. So the initial investment to the long-term savings I got off of it is great. So, you definitely have to look at those things as well. If you don't have Mac like I do, you can start with, if you want to do video, you can start editing with something that's free, Windows Movie Maker. I know it used to be available. It's been a while since I've been on a Windows machine. I still think I've heard people say they've used Windows, Movie Maker still on there. It was just a free video editing software that Windows had built into the operating system. Or you can definitely always do a search on Google for free video editing software. Try it out, use it, get comfortable with it, and over time, as you do more videos and you do more editing, you'll get better at editing. I look at now videos that I did a year and a half ago to videos I do now. My editing skills have got a ton better, and it's only been because I do more videos and I do more editing, so I've gotten more comfortable. And that's the key, just being comfortable. You will learn over time and with practice. It is no surefire way to do any of this outside of just doing it. Like Nike says, just do it. I hope I've been some sort of information, a resource, and I hope I can inspire you in some way that you start today. After you finish looking at this video, that you grab your phone or get in front of your computer and create something. If you're passionate about it and you want to talk about it and feel like you have a unique point of view, even if you're talking about the same thing that another YouTuber or another podcaster has, your perspective is unique only to you. No one has that same perspective but you. So put it out there if you're passionate about it and you want to. My name is James Harris. This is the Comic Book Savant channel. This is episode 10 of the Comic Book Collector's Guide. Again, If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do so. I do great content like this. Again, I hope that's a resource to you guys. So definitely subscribe to the channel. Smash the thumbs up for this video. Check out the playlist. I'll have it down. Well, I'll have it a link. You should see one now above me somewhere. To the playlist of all the episodes in the Comic Book Collector's Guide series. Also, I don't talk about this much, but if you enjoy the content that I'm doing here, you're already subscribed and you already smashed the thumbs up, consider being a Patreon and help support the videos as well as the YouTube channel. And when you subscribe as a Patreon, even with a little of as $1 a day, you get access to Comic Book Savant Extra. It's an extra, it's a Patreon exclusive podcast I do. So I do an additional weekly podcast for, as long as you subscribe to the Patreon for $1 or more, you get access to those episodes. So, and you get access to episodes that I do with the podcast early, a few days earlier before they go out on the feed. So you get some benefits there. It's different tiers. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon, check it out over at patreon.com/comic book savant. That's all I have for you guys for this episode. I hope you found it informative and useful. And I will see you guys next week for another episode. You guys take care. And remember, go out and create. Just do it. All right. Take care. And I'll see you next time.